Okay. So thank you, Ariane, for this question. And I'm very happy to contribute and participate in this topic. It's very dear to my heart as a young student, as a practitioner, and a young professional. I'm very happy to give my thoughts to what should be the future of universities to be able to fit into our society and also the challenges in the society. So, I imagine how our society is changing, that forces universities and higher education institutions to adapt in order to remain relevant or valid. So a couple of things come to my mind. The first one is, of course, I think about the concerns in terms of sustainability within universities and institutions. So I don't know if you know, but recently there have been concerns about availability of funding within higher education institutions across the world, and mostly in developing countries. I mean, I come from Kenya, and I know as a fact that government funding has been reducing over the years, and universities have to compete for limited resources. In lecturers striking and not be able to, and complaining about the remuneration packages that they're receiving. So they down their tools and they don't go to classes. And so in this light, most universities have sort of resulted into, looking for other sources of funding to be able to meet this gap. And you find that most universities have started operating in sort of a business-minded fashion. And, it's about attracting students who can pay and attracting more students than what they can manage. And, when I'm thinking about universities of the future, I think really universities, while there is a fact that they have to look for more funding and they have to sustain themselves and they have to keep on running, universities should not really forget about their role as higher education institution, delivering education, transfer of knowledge, exchanging research and all that. So they should not really forget this role. And then also the other thing that comes to my mind is when thinking about universities of the future and how they have to adapt, I look at now the current situation, like, the COVID pandemic. So we have natural disasters, not only COVID pandemic, but we've had floods, we've seen fires, wildfires caused by, the changing climate. We've seen also storms, and now the pandemic, corona pandemic, which has caused most institutions to close, most universities to close. And so there is no face-to-face delivery of knowledge. Students cannot go physically to the universities because of some of these natural disasters. But also apart from natural disasters, we've had, for instance, in Kenya and other universities in the region, we see students striking. There is a level of unrest, not only from the side of the students, but also the lecturers striking because they're not happy with the pay, or students are not happy with the way the university is being managed. So they're not happy. And I remember also from my days, whenever we would strike, students would go on strike, the university would close for a certain period of time and we would have to go home. So, in thinking about some of these either man-made disasters or natural disasters, universities have no choice but to adapt in the way they deliver the knowledge. In the way, universities have had to go online, have online platforms to be able to keep on running, because the universities will not be closed forever because of pandemic, and I mean, from my experience, I've really seen some universities actually struggle to remain relevant and to put their content online. And not only in Kenya, but also Uganda, for instance, they had to wait, some universities have to wait for the government to give a go-ahead on online delivery of courses. And also not only Uganda, but also other countries, for instance, because of this corona pandemic. So really, the pandemic it's not just, you don't see the bad sides of it, but the good side is that really universities have had a chance to adapt, to see that there is a different kind of delivery than just face-to-face or physical, coming to class and all that, and seeing a lecturer and having the face-to-face delivery. So really, there has to be a way where universities have to think about other means of transferring knowledge apart from the traditional method where the lecturer just stands and gives, teaches a class. So they have to think about virtual delivery, and with this also comes the additional factor where professors have to be trained. So universities of the future have to also think about, as much as they want to put their content online and have virtual delivery of classes, they also have to think about the implication of it. So the financial implication, the technology implication, the resources, what kind of human resource do they need to ensure that they still deliver knowledge in a way that is acceptable and in a quality kind of way. And then also what comes to my mind is, when you think about universities, and this is really because of my experience as a student who studied in Germany. I got an opportunity, funding through the DAAD, to study in Germany and do my master's degree, and it was fully funded. My stipends were paid. Of course, there was no tuition fee because of, I got exempted from paying tuition fee, but just the thought that I was lucky to get a scholarship to study in Germany and finish my studies and come back and contribute to my country, it makes me think about how universities have to really develop. They have to think about inclusion. They have to think about regional exchange, regional mobility beyond where they are located. So they should not only focus on their students in their countries, but also think about how they can get students from the other region, because they bring also rich kind of exchange, rich experience, which is good for the region and good for for keeping the knowledge within the region. So exchange and mobility should not only be between the global north and the global south. So or people from the global south traveling to global north just to study because of better education opportunities and good universities. But really, when I think about how universities should be in the future and how they should be able to support young people who want to travel beyond their countries, really regional exchange should be encouraged. For instance, as a Kenyan, I can be able to go to West and Central Africa to study in a university, or someone from Ghana can come and study in Kenya, or can go and study in South Africa. I feel that there is not enough marketing of institutions to attract students from around the region, so that the knowledge received stays within the region and helps develop the region. So if universities can think about ways of really attracting regional expertise, regional students, this would be really good. And now with universities adapting to, delivering their classes online or virtual, so mobility won't really be such a big problem, physical mobility. If someone cannot be able to afford to travel to other regions, they can be able to participate online or virtually, So universities have to also think about this, encouraging regional mobilization. And with this also comes, it has to be also connected to, other government institutions, for instance, institutions that offer recognition of certificates, because most young people say, oh, I'm not able to go and study in Kenya because Kenya requires me to have a certificate that is recognized in the country. So then what is the procedure for a regional student to come and study in Kenya? So also universities have to really be in close contact with commissions or institutions that offer recognition of degree certificates in their countries, to be able to facilitate regional students to study in that particular country, to make the process easy, to make the process worthy, so that these students can be able to study. So it's not just the universities, but also professors, universities, the administrators have to be in close communication with these institutions, with the government, with the ministry, to help with this. And then also I think about the labor market and employability, which is a big topic. Yeah. There have been, the changing society, the demand of the labor market, the demand of employers is that they need graduates who are work ready, who are, you leave school and you have the skills necessary to work. The sad fact is that most graduates are not certain that they will be able to be employed immediately after they graduate. There have been increased cases of unemployability, and you find really university graduates don't have opportunities to get jobs. They don't have jobs at all. And also, in addition to that, there is so much competition in the job market, and employers really need people with experience and with skills. Yeah. So, of course, there is also that complaint from a lot of employers that universities produce graduates who are half-baked. They only know about theory. There is no practical skills. And so employers spend a lot of money and a lot of time training a fresh graduate, and so my thinking is that in order to support graduates and young people who are just looking for employment after universities have no choice but to really think about collaborating with practitioners, collaborating with employers, and find a way where graduates or when they're still in campus, they are able to get jobs. They are able to train, and so that when they are out of the training and they are out of universities, they can be able to be employed. So universities have to merge theory and delivery of courses with practical skills. So they have to talk to practitioners. They have to see a way they can work together so that students learn, not only about theory but also the practical aspects of their skill. And then the other thing that comes to my mind when I'm thinking about universities of the future is really affordability of education, you know. So not everyone can afford to go to the university, you know. University education still remains to be there only for the few, and this is a sad reality in most developing countries. It is expensive to go to the university, and that is the reason why there's so many people who look for scholarships, who look for funding, so that they're able to afford their tuition fees or living stipends, because most universities, unfortunately, are not located in the villages, you know, they're in the cities or towns or capital cities and all that. So I have friends up to now who still have they are in huge debt because of student loans. And they are still repaying their student loans even after employment. A good example is me. I am still repaying my student loan for my university education. But how can this be, you know, when university education should be at least for everyone? People should be able to afford. It should be free. You should not be paying for university education. You should not be paying such high amounts of money for education, which is a right. So really, future universities have to think of a way of accommodating, you know, students who are not from wealthy families, who cannot pay university education, and find a way to involve them, because really there are very good students who are being left behind just because they cannot afford to pay the university education. So now, with also online and virtual means, everyone right now with technology, most people can afford a smartphone, you know. Universities have to also think of a way to really engage those people who cannot be in the universities physically because of, you know, they cannot afford to travel, they cannot afford to pay for hostels, they cannot afford to stay in the cities where these universities are. Then they have to think of a way to really accommodate all students. So this is what comes to my mind when I think about University of the Future. The last thing that comes to my mind is something that I'm very passionate about. You know, when you're thinking about universities of the future, I also think about the role of the professors and lecturers, academics, you know, in terms of being engaged in national level policy discussions about various sectors. So not only the education sector where they are involved, but also, you know, social sector, health, infrastructure, you know, all policy discussions which affect the lives of the students they're teaching, their lives, and the lives of also people in the country. So in my opinion, I really think universities of the future should actually think about being engaged in various policy discussions, either at the national level, regional level, local level. And in addition, they also need to help develop students who are politically engaged, either politically engaged, socially engaged in such discussions through practice. And very often you find that such discussions around, you know, policy issues, very important policy issues, are left to private sector, civil society, they're left to government bodies, ministries. So you find the academia very rarely present in these discussions, while they really need to take part in such discussions and give their research, give their professional research and all that. I'll just give you an example. For instance, in Kenya, we recently had a debate on division of revenue formula, which needed to be changed. And this division of revenue formula should determine how revenue is shared between the national government and the regional government, so the county governments. And it's very unfortunate because this debate was highly contested. There was a lot of disagreement between the Senate and the Parliament. It was not passed because a lot of Senate members were against it, while very few were for it. And these are instances where academics or professors and researchers in the academia should be able to provide their knowledge in terms of how revenue should be shared in the country. Unfortunately, you find very few professors being engaged in such high-level discussions. And so it's left only to practitioners and private sector. So there is really, and yet such decisions actually eventually affect how money will be shared and what kind of money will even come to higher education institutions, So you find that there is really need for continuous dialogue and between society, between practitioners, and also universities, beyond just, universities being able to present their findings to a select group of people. So universities need to really engage in high-level discussion at the national level, at the local level, and really influence some of these discussions that happen. They have to play a more active role in building sort of unique and diverse communication channels to be able to transfer their knowledge within the society. So those are some of the key things that come to my mind when I think about the role of the future university, and also how it can be able to support young people. Yeah.